This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, people are already jumping over. I just need a second here to get settled. Trying to transition. Doing these workshops back to back, there's no time to really get ready for the next one. So I'm doing it now. So let me just get off the other PowerPoint and I'll try to shift my brain into Zoom. So the last workshop I just led was actually on video, and this is the more specific version of that, which is talking about using Zoom in our classes. And I'm seeing quite a few familiar faces, and I think I'll just do a quick, let me see here. I'm doing a couple screenshots, and this is not, we're not tracking attendance, but I'm just trying to see who's doing what, and then hopefully we can reach out to some of you and continue to have some conversations about future trainings. So definitely, let me just adjust my window here to gallery view. I see a lot of familiar faces. Welcome to everyone. Anytime in the workshop today, if you want to unmute yourself, I have everyone pre-muted, and that's a kind of a good tip actually when you do one of these Zoom workshops. The quickest way is you hold down your space bar, and it's just like a walkie-talkie. It's like push to talk, and it's very convenient. So what I do is I preset everything in my Zoom meetings, because if you have 30 students, I was talking with or texting Christina Tomaleo, who had a class she did for the first time in Zoom, psychology class, and she said, I had 20 students, and it was really kind of crazy, and some students couldn't log on. And I just want to say that, in these times of uncertainty and coronavirus, it's enough just trying to deal and process with all of that psychologically and existentially. Certainly the technology itself is going to be challenging for many people. Let me just I always forget this, I'm going to share the screen here. And now you can see my PowerPoint. It's actually my first Zoom tip for you. I forget so often. Last night I was leading a workshop, and I don't know what it is. I forget to do the screen share button, and I'll show you towards the end of the presentation how you do that. And I forget, and it's one of many technological reminders, I think, as we go through this process of working with our students. They will have challenges technologically. We will have challenges. Patience and flexibility is always good for all of us. So I want to mention, just if you've done some of these trainings, there are other trainings I'm working on. This is kind of the quasi-curriculum. So right now we're in Zoom, the basics, and many of you are logged on as instructors, as staff members. You might be interested in doing some work for your governance councils, a lot of different uses for Zoom. Zoom has a lot of possibilities. So I also want to mention that if you are interested in any of the other Canvas trainings, I will start to do more of the general Canvas trainings and then break down into components of Canvas over the next few days. Watch your ltcc.edu email. I will probably be doing a lot of this on Saturday and Sunday because we're quarantined with Netflix and Cheetos and sitting in our homes and trying to decide what we're going to do until June or July or whenever something changes with the global pandemic. So a lot of time now certainly to reach out and to do some video workshopping. We'll also have one-on-one assistance available. If you're getting stuck coming up, we're going to have a plan for actually maybe doing one-on-one Zooms with you, particularly with Trevor's expertise, where we can jump on your shell and in real time work through some of the issues you're having. So you're not alone. You're not in the wilderness without hope. I wanted to mention that tomorrow, the president sent this email out around 5 tonight. There will be an all-campus Zoom meeting from 3 to 4:30. All you have to do is log on. Lisa Schaefer will be sending a Zoom link. So it should be kind of interesting to see our bandwidth, if our firewall can handle it, and how we can live Zoom, 200 people or more at the same time. So come to that tomorrow if you're at all interested. So Zoom, you're all logged in. And as a user, participant in Zoom, really all you have to do is click on a link. You don't even need an account. I will say to you, you certainly should get an account for the purposes of leading a governance meeting on campus or for certainly leading a class discussion. In my video workshop I just did, I talked about asynchronous video. Zoom is primarily for synchronous video, with the but with the addition that Zoom videos up to 32 gigabytes, which will work out to be generally about, if we're recording at 1080p, which is the resolution that is high definition, it looks pretty good. For recording at that, it's maybe about a gig of an hour Zoom session that gets uploaded into the cloud. everyone with their Zoom account has up to 32 gigabytes of storage in the cloud. And I'll talk a little bit later about how that's used and whether or not you, how to delete videos and all that kind of stuff. But the primary purpose of Zoom is to really do what we're doing now. It's to have real-time conversations. It's to do demos. If you're teaching a painting class and you want to have students in real time paint a drawing and you comment on it in real time, Zoom is really your one-stop shop for all things with synchronous video. I think I already gave this away, but anytime today you want to talk and interrupt and ask a question, hold the space bar like a walkie-talkie and you can jump in and ask a question. What I'll do is at the end of the logical sections, we'll take some time to talk and answer any questions. So minimum technology, Zoom is super easy to use. You can use an app version on your phone. You don't even need the app. In fact, I tested it out. If I take the link to tonight's workshop, I click on that, it loads it into my browser on my phone, and I'm immediately viewing it. You may not have the best quality audio, but it's pretty good. And I often say, as instructors, if you're teaching a class, you need to decide if you want your students to have their videos showing or not, or just their audio. Phyllis Schaefer, our art instructor from the last session, said, well, what's your philosophy on should students have video on during a class? And I said, that's entirely up to you. We can't determine for you what works. You know, if you're and you're teaching a math class and you want students, and it could actually be cool with a math class. I was thinking you could have a Sharpie and you could have a long sheet of paper and students could work on problems in real time and you could have all these displayed. And in those cases, you wouldn't necessarily have to have people's faces showing. Now, if students are concerned about privacy, you could simply put in your syllabus a statement saying, I will not be sharing your videos on the internet, on YouTube, or whatever. But that was a good question from Phyllis, but that's something that you have to think about on your own. So Zoom is very easy to use. Any computer, all computers, with probably no exceptions, have a built-in webcam and a microphone. And I'm not using my fancy microphone. I use that if I'm doing a voiceover. I am doing a recording right now with an audio recorder because I have discovered, at least from my very picky audio ears, you know, from the music world I come from, that I am, finding that the recordings that Zoom produces in the cloud have a particular type of audio compression that sounds a little bit tinny and just not to my liking. But that's just me being picky, and I wouldn't even worry about that. I think Zoom is a wonderful platform. I think certainly you can decide if you want to download the app. It's very easy. Go to zoom.us if you don't have an account, and you can get started. Now, if you're doing it on a Mac, I won't say too much. We can work offline. But basically, the minute you try to use it first on a Mac, you will download a very small application. It's next to nothing in size. It looks like this. And then when I run it, I'm always seeing it here on my toolbar. And there are just a couple preferences you have to set up in terms of your security. So very easy. We can work on this offline, one-on-one. You'll go to your security preferences, and you'll basically give access to Zoom for your microphone and also your webcam. And it's just a security thing. Once you do that, you're good to go. And as I take you through the workshop today, I'll talk about both the native program that runs on Windows and Mac and also the web version. They're very similar in function, but they look a little bit different in terms of the GUI, the graphic interface that you see when you use it as a user. Now, one of the things I'll tell you right now is if you're doing any kind of workshopping, looking at Amber, participating here, if you're doing some stuff in work experience, and you want to run meetings with all your staff and maybe some of your clients and some of your instructors, because there's a lot of, with work experience, a lot of things that don't happen on a traditional calendar like our 11-week classes, then I really recommend moving out of the basic account. Very easy to do. In fact, I will copy this into our chat room. If you don't know how to use a chat room, you'll see a little bar up at the top, which I'm going to talk about later in our conversations, and you click on, and now I'm saying that I lost where it is. Here it is, chat. You may have to click on the more window, and I'm going to hit that and then hit return. So everyone now in the chat window, you'll be able to click on that link. So this is not super counterintuitive. If you already have a basic account, and kudos to Austin helping me out on this last week on campus. If you already have a basic account, even though it doesn't make sense, you need to go to this URL and set up as if you did not have an account. So even though you have it, fill in your name, first, last name, your college. Very important, put in your at ltcc.edu email address. Hit sign up. It's giving people right now, because of coronavirus, a 72-hour window. In all reality, Megan in our Connect office the other day said it took 45 minutes. You'll get an email. The email will say, please click on this link. The link takes you to your current Zoom account, and at that point it'll say, please confirm that you are switching your account type. You hit confirm, and it's as seamless a process as I've seen. Two ways to know if you have a pro account. I'll show you both of those today. One is on the app, and I can't show you, I'm only showing you screenshots. There is a security setting under the settings in Zoom, which we'll talk about, that doesn't allow me to show you, like I'm seeing all your faces on the window, you're seeing all the faces in the video window. You see the little toolbar, but we cannot see our own versions of that. So I cannot show you right now, like the video window, even though I can move it on the screen here. You can't see that unless I go in and adjust the setting. So as a result of that, I'm showing you a lot of screenshots today and not real time. But what I want to say is, if you click on the app version and click on your avatar, or if you don't have an avatar, the little gray image for your account. If you have Pro up in the right hand corner, you know you're a Pro user. Do not purchase an account. The fact that you have an ltcc.edu email address gives you free access to, and I'm a little unclear because Pro actually should be this account, but when I look at my account status, I have a business account. I have 300 participants. Doesn't really matter. 100 participants is more than any class we currently teach at the college, and in both cases, you have a maximum 24 hours recording in a day. So you can't possibly use any more than that. If you have the basic account, you only get, it says 40 minutes. I've been getting back when I had a basic 45 minutes, and you have a limitation. I actually thought it was less than 100 participants. So if you're only participating, if you're not doing synchronous video in your class, or you're not doing synchronous video as a host for your campus office, you can stick with the basic account. But why bother? Why not just sign up for that form and get it done just in case you need it? So for any instructors out there, if you're hosting any video, you definitely should have that available. So go for the Pro account. Before we go on to Zoom architecture, if you want to hold to talk in your spacebar, any questions about getting signed up or concerns you have about the nature of a Zoom account and how you might use it in a class or office setting here at the college? Anyone want to hold to talk and spacebar? No.
Well, Scott,
yeah.
These images are so small. I need to zoom in my screen.
Oh.
How can I do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really dependent on your device. Depending on what you're working with, there typically is a view, like in PowerPoint's a bad example, but there's a view option usually on your computer, but that's going to vary based on device. So that's kind of hard to say, unfortunately. I am working, good news, I'm working on, once I get my audio fixed here, I'm going to do a video archive of maybe this workshop tonight, and then I'll put that up on YouTube and you could watch it. So yeah, sorry about that. It's kind of hard to see. I can make it a little bit bigger, but it's just, I think it's just constrained whatever Zoom is working with. We'll try that a little bit. So I'll take you through then just the architecture of Zoom. And again, you're going to see most of this will be the web version of Zoom. If you use the app version on Windows or Mac, it's going to look a little bit different. I kind of wish they looked exactly the same. But basically, you'll see a number of features and tabs that are pretty useful for you in working through Zoom and learning it. Again, Zoom for Windows and Mac has a much cleaner graphic interface. I don't really like it all that much. I prefer the web version. This one, you click on meetings, it'll take you to meetings, as this one will. But the functionality of the native iOS, the native Windows version, it's just not as advanced. And in fact, the weird thing is, if you want to adjust settings on the Mac or Windows version, it will actually take you to the links on your web version. So the web version, to me, is superior in terms of functionality. So on the web version, you're going to see a series of tabs, and we'll go through these just to give you a flavor of what to expect when you start using Zoom. So the profile tab is pretty important only at the beginning of your Zoom experience, because by that I'm suggesting you might want to go on and create your picture. Very easy to do. You hit the change button and you upload. There's a constraint on the type of image. You shouldn't use a TIFF. It's typically, I think, a JPEG or PNG file. Once you have that up there, it kind of personalizes your profile. And then for those of you right now, there are some of you, for example, who are muted video. What it'll do then is it'll show that same image when your video is muted. If you don't currently have an avatar image, it will just show your name over a black screen or gray screen. And perfectly fine, of course. So if you want an image, you just simply upload it there. The other thing is, I really recommend when you set up your account, and maybe tell your students this, have your first and last names. I was trying to create a list of people getting the Zoom training because President Franco was concerned about, will people be able to log on for the all-campus meeting? And what happens is, I was getting certain people who had nicknames, or if they logged in on their cell phone, just their cell phone number showed up. So I think it'd be very important to put in your syllabus for your students that when they're logging on to Zoom, and there is that option, even if I joined by a cell phone, it might say Scott's iPhone, do you want to change that display name? And then the minute I log in, that registers on the bar of participants, both in the chat room and also in the video gallery that we can all view right now. So I think that's pretty important for the sake of taking attendance and just knowing who's talking and so forth. I won't get into it today, but you can also use like a personal meeting room. So everyone has a unique URL right here. At any time, I could give all of you this URL. You click on it, and as long as I'm logged on, we all would all be in our own private chat session. So that's pretty useful. You have office hours coming up, and all you have to say is, hey, you know what? I'll meet you virtually at 10 a.m. I'll meet you in an hour. Here is my personal invite. Click on that, and immediately, you log on at 10. The student is there. So it's a pretty cool feature. As I mentioned earlier with your pro account, if you see down here that you are licensed, then you know you do not have a basic account. And if you can't see that, you'll just click on your profile page, and in the middle, it'll say user type, basic versus licensed. The other thing I want to mention to you is that you will use, of course, your l2cc.edu email to log on to Zoom. When we get to the Canvas integration at the end of this workshop, very important that you have your primary email in Canvas set as that exact same ltcc.edu email. If you have a Gmail or Yahoo as your primary contact email in Canvas, the integration, the crosstalk between what's happening in Zoom and into CCC Confer, the scheduling tool within Canvas, will not happen. I discovered that the other night. Took me an hour to figure out, and I finally fixed it. But there are weird quirks like that you can't discover probably in any manual. You just have to do trial and error, so I'm trying to alleviate some of that. And again, the same thing under profile on the web, on the non-web version, the Mac or Windows, you could see if you're pro or not. And that's just important to know because you want to make sure that you have that to host longer than 40 or 45-minute meetings. So going back to the web version. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Kurt. So that personal meeting space, is that just for you and one other person at a time?
No, it's as many as you want. As many as you want.
And you can just so you would just email somebody the link and say,
email the link. Yeah, that's all you do is you email it. And the only thing is you have to be logged on yourself, because if you're not there and students are waiting, then obviously it'll be an empty room or just the students. But yeah, that's your personal unique invite that you can use at any time if you don't want to do a scheduled meeting. Yeah, so it's really cool because Zoom allows you all these options, how you like to work in terms of scheduling office hours or scheduling a critique with your students if you're teaching a music class or whatever. So it's really cool and flexible to your style. So yes, absolutely, you can use that. So to go back to the navigation tabs, when you click on meetings, very handy place. This is where you would set up all the meetings. So as I'm setting up meetings for all these workshops, I'm going in, I click on meeting, and immediately I see this window. I type in, again, I'm not doing this in real time because of the privacy settings here. I type in the topic. I could include a short description. I click on the date. When I pop that up, it does that typical calendar view. I click on the date I want it to be. I could set the time, and then I could do the hour and minute. And I don't even touch the time zone. It should default for all of you for West Coast. If you're in Washington, California, most of us West Coast. And if you want a recurring meeting, that would actually be, I haven't messed with that yet, but that would be something that would happen maybe at the same time. So that might be handy for, say, same time and same day of the week. That might be handy for a regular Tuesday, Thursday meeting if you want your students to log on at the same time. Now, any of the functionality like meeting passwords and that kind of stuff, I would say, don't check that. It defaults to it being checked off, because anything that's adding another layer of you have to type in a password or this kind of thing, it's making it harder for our students. Make it as seamless as possible. One thing I'll mention to you is that I'll show you the settings tab in a little bit. You can set the settings tab, which is global for everything you do going forward, for every single meeting, for, as Kurt was mentioning there, those private meetings with your personal number or your personal code. You can also then get more specific and do that in meetings. You can set global settings in settings and then change those, erase them, alter them in the meeting setting. But what I recommend to you is, if you know how you're going to be working with all of your meetings for your students or your campus meetings, do a lot of that work globally under settings, and then when you come to your meetings setting, those defaults are already arranged for you. And as an example of that, on the next page of meetings, again, I'm not going to have, for me, a meeting password. I'm always going to have my host video on. If you want your students to have videos, you could have that on. Again, right now, I could go on as a host and mute. You could go on and take your video on and off. Very handy, right? If someone has something where they need to mute themselves, or their dog runs into the room and they need to turn off their video, very handy. You can always do that as a user. But globally, you could set this up. I discovered this, and I think it was Kurt and one other instructor yesterday. There was a snafu in one of my workshops where if you clicked on the 7 p.m., even though it was 10 a.m., you could join that. And so I think there were two of you who were actually in a workshop. And the reason for that was, before yesterday, I had this this selected here, enable join before host. I have since gone in and erased that or unchecked that for every workshop. Here's what happens. If you check enable join before host, someone can click on the link. They could go in there 24 hours ahead of time, and Zoom will actually open up that meeting to them and will actually start recording that meeting. You will then get notifications nonstop on your email that, so-and-so is waiting, please start the meeting. And you're like, well, no, the meeting starts 24 hours from now. So because of that snafu yesterday, I went in and changed that. I don't see a reason to do that. And the truth is, if you have a class meeting set for 10 a.m., you could have this checked off, and you could still get there at 9:50, hit start the meeting from your meeting tab, and the students could then start it as soon as you start it. So I would not recommend having that checked. I think that's potentially a disaster. I would recommend having this checked. Mute participants upon entry. If you have 20 students in the class, and if people have dogs, if people are, potentially have children, there's sounds in the room, it could create a feedback loop. It just gets really messy. So I definitely recommend having that checked either in your meeting setting or your global setting. So when you set up a meeting, again, very easy. You give something a title. And then the other thing is, when you click on the meetings tab, it will show you the upcoming meetings. I will click on that. And then all I have to do, like for tonight's meeting, one of these said Zoom workshop 8 p.m. start. I hit start and the meeting starts. Whenever I hit start, it will show me my previous meetings if I want to go back and track anything or whatever. And I'll show you a little bit later about reports and how to take attendance and see who's been part of your class meeting and their level of engagement and so forth. Now, the recordings tab, what I'll say about this, I did a workshop at 7. I'll do it again on video. If you're not planning to use recordings from any of your Zoom workshops, you don't necessarily have to have those. Yeah, Kurt, go ahead.
Yeah, can you just backtrack? Where was the screen? How did you get to the screen where you can, that screen that you were just at?
So that screen, once I log into Zoom, if I go to zoom.us, then this automatically shows up. You generally have to click on the right-hand corner under Account, My Account, and then this all pops up. So profile meetings.
The screen where you made the settings like like mute participants upon entry. How did you get to that?
Oh yeah, so that is when I click on meetings, the first thing that will show up when click on schedule a new meeting right there. Yep, schedule new meeting, and then this pops up, right? And so all my meetings are here, schedule new meeting, and then it'll ask me to save it, and I will get a little code that will tell people where to log on for that particular meeting. Yeah, good question on that. So for the recordings, what I would say to you is, if you don't need to have the recordings recorded, you don't care about that, you don't necessarily have to even use this functionality. You could turn it off or whatever. And my other workshop on a video that it will be coming up, I did one today at 7, I'll do it in the future. What I would say is there are much better ways to save what's called asynchronous video. In other words, video that is not live, that is a tutorial. Wynn is teaching a calculus lesson, and she's taking students through that, and it's non-interactive. If it's interactive, use Zoom, but you don't necessarily have to then save those recordings on your Zoom site or your Canvas site. I'll show you how you can actually do that via CCC Confer if you want to. So when recordings are saved, just to go through that rather quickly, you'll get notification. You could either click on the tab of meetings and then click on recordings, or click on the recordings tab, and then it'll have each meeting listed for you. At that point, you'll get a series of files. You will have a fairly decent, you could see for an hour recording, almost a gig of an MP4 video file. It will give you audio only file. It will give you an audio transcript and a chat file. So as students are asking questions of each other and the instructor, or your meeting participants in a meeting are asking questions in the chat file, you don't have to worry about doing a screenshot or downloading that file, because it does it for you all via Zoom. Again, if you're not using any of this functionality, don't have to worry about it. So it's entirely up to you. Now this is kind of funny, and I warn you a little bit because a little levity here, but I got indication on Friday. I was doing a workshop and it said, hey, the transcript of your recording is ready. And so I thought, let me open up. It's just a simple text file that I opened up. And this particular conversation, we were on Friday for a grant talking about, I didn't describe to people what a face-to-face class was versus a DE class. And so our conversation was about that, and somehow the algorithm in Zoom transcribed that I was telling people that they were evil, which I think is pretty funny. I can guarantee I didn't say you are evil. So what I'm indicating by this is the transcript, at least from my experiences, of what you speak in your audio into the video of Zoom may not be that accurate. If you really, really, really want to get an audio transcript of a video for whatever teaching or meeting purpose that you have, connect with me offline, because what we want to do is take your video file that is downloaded, upload that to YouTube, even as a private video, and then have YouTube do the captioning and transcription, because the captioning on YouTube is in the high 90% in terms of accuracy, in terms of words. It messes up punctuation here and there with commas and so forth, but I would say from my experiences, I do not recommend the accuracy of the text transcript. But in all honesty, if I'm teaching a class, I don't know what I would need a text transcripts for, other than maybe a review of what was discussed in that classroom. So recordings is totally up to you. This is what you see on the recordings. And in all honesty, the reason all of these are bunched up here, it's kind of interesting. Because I had that little thing checked, allow participants to join before host, anytime someone joined, and I still see this today for my old meetings. So someone, if they have the link, they click on it, they start the meeting, it automatically creates a recording. In a lot of cases, it's just a blank screen. But then I am cluttering all my recording space with all of these people logging on at the time in which the meeting is not actually taking place. So because I went back now and unclicked that, join before host, I'm only going to get video, audio, transcript files from the actual seminars. Like I'll get one from today. It might arrive, because of processing, if it's an hour long, it might arrive up to 24 hours later, but the video will be available, as will those other files, including the audio. So this can get cluttered if you really do not uncheck that join before host option. I'll go into settings, and then we'll take a Q&A at the end of settings. So settings, in all honesty, is a tab that you will likely use just at the very beginning when you're setting up all the global settings. I will not show you all these. It would be about, 10 pages long. So again, you click on your settings tab and all of these options will come up. I'm not going to go through all these, but a lot of these you can leave as the default. What I would say is make sure that you click the ones that are going to make your life easier. So right there, join before host, and let me do the annotation. I'll show you how this all works. It's kind of slick here. I can draw on the screen. So what I'm saying is do not have that blue. Again, if it's blue, it is going to be active. It's going to be on. And the fact that I did that and then all these people started joining before created just kind of a hassle because I was getting pinged on my email. So I definitely recommend that you have that turned off unless you have some reason for that. I'll just go through a few of these. I'm not going to cover everything. It is pages and pages, and this really shows you how much you can customize Zoom. It's incredibly powerful. I do not recommend having passwords for meetings because, again, that is going to add another layer of asking your students to do something. So I would not necessarily. I'd leave that as the default in terms of any password. Same thing with the phone participation. If students are actually joining by phone, I should probably get that annotation off there. We'll just go through a few more screens here. A lot of this with chat and private chat, again, I don't see a lot of reason to adjust any of these. Things like file transfer. Do you want students to send files? If you're teaching an art class or a photography class and you want students to share in real time, you could accomplish that through the chat room and the file share. But another way to do that is to actually go in and make sure that the setting on screen share is allowing students to do that. I think anytime you use screen share, that gives students the best options to share stuff with the class in real time. So on here, for example, under screen share, you just want to make sure that if it says all participants, it allows at any time students to share their screen. So if Win is teaching a math class and wants to have students working on a problem and show their work on a piece of paper in front of a screen, which is very easy to do, then they would hit either the screen share to do that on the screen if they're working on it visually, or if it's an image, a video, they would just hold that up in front of their camera. So it's really cool, I think, for collaborative teaching, either through screen share or using the camera that's available to us. Annotation I'll talk about in a little bit. Annotation is what allows me right now to draw on the screen any number of things and to, sorry, I had the mouse selected there, and to basically make, I did it again, hold on, I have to select an actual tool, and it just allows me in real time to draw things and emphasize things, and really easy to use, and I'll show you how to use that in just a second. And we'll end the setting page here. It actually goes on for many more pages. Whiteboard, do you want students to share whiteboards during a meeting? Breakout rooms and all this kind of stuff. To be quite honest with you, this level of functionality I'm not using in most of these workshops I'm doing, so you don't have to knock yourself out. Just use the things that are going to make the most sense for you when you're working through Zoom. Let me talk about reports and we'll open up for questions. So reports is another tab, and reports will be useful if you have any reason to track the participants who participated in your meeting or class. Basically, what will happen is you'll click on reports, and for every meeting, it will give you a number of things. All of these things, these information points, these data points, can be downloaded as a CSV file, which is just a typical spreadsheet file that you could bring into Excel, or Numbers, which is the Excel native program on Mac. And so it will tell me then the participants, it will tell me the duration of their participation in the workshop. I was kind of joking about this on social media. I thought it was kind of funny. They do an attentiveness score, and I think that has to do with whether your face is visible in the camera or something, because in our Friday workshops that this report was generated from, the deans were talking to the faculty, so I left the screen and the deans came on the screen to talk about our contingency to do final exams here in this compressed format that we're working through. So I got a really low attentiveness score. But what I'd say to you is, don't even mess with that. Just use it for tracking attendance. If you're setting an attendance requirement And if the duration of your class period is 2 hours or 1 hour, and you log on and you see, well, a student only had 7 minutes or 1 minute, that's going to ping something to say, hey, I really want you to participate for 90% of the meeting, which is maybe an hour or 2 hours. So then at that moment, based upon your participation data, you can go back to that student, have an intervention, and say, you will be required to do makeup work because I'm requiring 1 hour of video participation per week. Again, that's up to you to how to decide how to do that. But for me, if I'm using this in a class or I'm using this in a governance meeting, it's really handy. It gives me all the names. One warning I have for you, I've been trying to get lists of participants. It seems like the system right now is taking over a day to generate those. I don't know if that's because of all the strain on Zoom right now because of coronavirus, but it's one thing to think about with reports. If you're not doing attendance via Zoom, a video workshop, you don't even have to deal with reports. There would be no reason really to even get into reports. Before I jump into the next thing, if you want to hold the space bar and ask a question, anything popping up with those Windows tabs that we've been looking at on Zoom that maybe you have some questions about, or you're thinking about a question related to how to use this in your class to make it make some pedagogical sense in terms of teaching a particular concept?
Well, I have a question, Scott.
Yeah, Kurt, go ahead.
Do you recommend just bypassing the Confer Zoom that's within Canvas?
So I'm going to talk about that. That's coming up, I want to say, in 5 slides. So, yeah. So we'll talk about that for sure. It's a good conversation to have, and it's a tricky answer when I get to that. So, yeah, good question. Anything else? Or, well, we'll move on. So 2 types of users. You already know this. There's participant level and host. There are some emails going around right now about, people on campus, you should have the more pro account. For our students, really, all they have to do is click on the link that you're going to give them. They don't necessarily need to have that. Now, if they have an LTCC email, or if they just want to go to Zoom and get a basic account to set up their profile and their name, that's going to make it a little bit easier for you as an instructor when you're just trying to track who are all these folks that are appearing on my gallery view of all their videos and names. So it's really up to you. But again, as a host, you probably will need that as an instructor in the class if you're using Zoom for real-time synchronous meetings. Now, this is straight from the president. I said, hey, Jeff, give us your tips on what you think we might use Zoom for, how we might use it more effectively, particularly as we have our all campus meeting tomorrow from 3 to 4:30. So he said, be really aware of muting and unmuting. Definitely tell your students that tip about the walkie-talkie, push to talk on the space bar. Very handy to unmute people. They can unmute themselves. Check your lighting. In all honesty, I'm getting issues depending on the time of day. I might have some backlight here. I can adjust it myself, and then that is maybe going to adjust it for you. It's actually not too bad. Most of our devices are doing auto exposure. If I use my phone to shoot video, I get white balance, funky kind of issues. So that's why I use typically, one of my nicer cameras, like my Blackmagic, which shoots a lot higher quality video. But for purposes of just doing something in your class and having video, whether it's high definition or not for your students, I wouldn't even get into that. So I think lighting is actually probably not as important. Now, this comes from Jeff as well. Use video as a way to replicate a face-to-face meeting, and I should add that, let's edit that, or classroom, or class, because in the last hour, Phyllis Schaefer, who teaches art, said, hey, should students always have video on? What I would say to that is, decide as an instructor. If you don't care about that, if Wynn is teaching a math class and it's like, hey, as long as you log on, and maybe I'll go to my reports and see that student A was on for an hour, I don't care if you had your video off. It's an honor system. I'm assuming you're not going to go in the other room and play Fortnite or make coffee or whip up a ramen noodle bowl or something like that. We're all going to have a lot of time on our hands. I do not anticipate that our students are probably like us going to be bored. I'm not to get too geeky here, but I love doing these workshops because, we're kind of under quarantine right now. So I'm not actually too worried about students not participating in spring quarter. I think they're going to all be participating, or high numbers, because we're looking for this kind of virtual social interaction, because we're not going to get it going to stores or movies or sporting events or casinos or whatever. So you decide on your own end for your meetings, if you're leading meetings, or for your classes, but definitely think about that and maybe have that established in your syllabus parameters ahead of time. As far as Zoom etiquette, it's just the simple stuff. We're doing some interviews this week. I'm on the sociology hiring committee, and one of the things I'm going to be doing, because I don't want all my music here showing, is I'm going to shift my screen just to my blue wall. And once I do that, I'm going to shift my desk. And then, for the purposes of interviews, I feel like it's going to look more professional. That's not going to really fall into, Win, I love your backdrop there. I love seeing all your active stuff. What Kurt and Solange have, it all looks very professional. For a class purpose, I don't think it's a big deal. We just would think about it for meetings and probably also for interviews. There is a feature in Zoom that is a virtual background. That slide may be coming up. To me, it's a little goofy. There's like one that's like a space thing. It's actually really done well. It's almost like a green screen technology. So I load it up, and it's going to detect the outline of my face, my shirt, and everything back here would then be blurred out, or would look like a tropical rainforest or a space image or something. And that's just if you're concerned about, you're messy. I don't like to do this, but if I do the screen there, it gets really, there's junk on the floor and stuff. So I'm trying to be aware of that in running these meetings, but none of you are going to call me out if my space is a little bit messy. But if there's anything like that with Zoom etiquette that you want to go over with your students, just establish that up front, because those parameters might be important to running your class. Let me show you then a little bit of the cool functions as you're working with Zoom as a host. So again, right now in real time, because of my settings tab not allowing this, I cannot show you. You can't see my current gallery view of participants. You also can't see my, what I call the control panel of Zoom. This will appear either at the top or bottom of your screen. I often see that it moves around, and I think you can probably drag it as well. All the basic functionality is available. I click on Manage Participants. I can mute and unmute people. I could turn someone into a host and give them more privileges for sharing screens. I could also then click on the chat button here. I can click on closed caption, etc. I want to say that you can also do that through the gallery view. So in the gallery view, if I have a screenshot of that, I don't think I do. But in the view you're seeing right now with all of our images, you can go on there, click and unmute someone, or you could tell them the trick with holding down the space bar. It's totally up to you. Now this next thing is a discovery I made, and it's as silly a mistake as I have made. This is when you're doing a screen share. You want to make sure that you see this green bar. You're actually not seeing it now. I'm seeing it. So what will happen is when you go to Zoom, you'll click on the share button. If you want to do just sharing your desktop, you have to click on that. And the weird thing is, when I log on and when I started this workshop today, the blue was highlighted. And so last night I made the mistake 15 minutes into the workshop. People could just see my backdrop here of everything in me, and they're like, oh, I don't see your PowerPoint. And I'm like, oh, stupid me, I didn't select that. So even though it's defaulted to desktop, which is my favorite screen share, you have to do that from the start. And the way to know if that's working is you'll see a green bar all the way around whatever it is that you're sharing. So just be sure that you see that green banner there. Now, when you click on share, it will give you an option of having a whiteboard. You could, I've never tried this link to your iDevice, your iPhone, iPad. You could also do a window by window basis. So every program you have open, click on that. It only confines the screen share, it confines the screen share to whatever is only showing in that window. So for me, the most options is to click on desktop share, and then I just move programs around. If I want to show you my PowerPoint, I do that. If I want to show you my Google Chrome and my Canvas, I show you that. So I really enjoy the desktop share, which you're going to access through here. If you want to do polling in real time, it's kind of cool actually. You could click on that. It's a multiple choice question. You type a poll title, you give like 4 or 5 answers, and then in real time, someone can participate in a poll. It's actually kind of cool. I could do that right now just as a test, and you'll see it in real time. So I type test on here, test, and I could type, different answers. And then I'm going to hit, you're not seeing this right now, but I'll hit save. And then I hit launch poll. And the minute I hit launch poll, now you could actually participate in that poll. So that's something like if you're teaching a concept, if I'm teaching mathematics or something like that, and I am working through doing a lecture, and I'm not going to be stopping a lot during the lecture, I could then put a poll up there and say, hey, are you getting this concept, yes or no? Or what additional work would you like to see for our next class in teaching you this concept? Or I'm teaching music appreciation and saying, okay, do you feel like you're confident in understanding what Baroque music is or something like that? So it's a cool way actually in real time to use a poll as a way of making sure your students are understanding a concept. So this menu bar as a user is going to be very key to your experience. This is what I was trying to describe to you. So in this view, you could actually go on and you could unmute people or mute people and so forth. So it's really handy as a host in Zoom. I should have mentioned earlier, when you do when you create a new meeting in Zoom, you will automatically be allowed to copy the invite. Initially, I was sending out all this information to people on campus with phone numbers and Skype for Business. The honest truth, all I send now is this one little link because it's your main link. Most people are not going to be dialing in by phone. If that's a concern, you can still have that available to your students or your meeting attendees. But if you give them this one link, which always will start with cccconfer.zoom, that is really your go-to link. You click on that as a participant and you immediately can join the meeting. So, yeah, go ahead.
Your test poll is still on front of everything.
Oh, it is? Okay. When you say on front, what does that mean? It was...
Scott?
Yeah.
It's in front of
I
the...
clicked on the X in the upper right-hand corner and it went away on my laptop.
Huh, okay. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, so you said you went away, so let me just...
That happened too. I got rid of it.
Okay, let me end the poll, and I think then it'll... Okay, share results, stop sharing. Okay, so yeah, that could be an issue too. It's one of the things, there's one trick, and the only issue, let me show you that. One of the things you can do, but you get a feedback, so you just have to mute your audio. What I could do to see what you're seeing on the screen is actually I could take a device like an iPad or an iPhone, and I could take my meeting invite for this exact meeting, click on it, log in as a secondary user, and then in real time, I could look at that screen and say, okay, this is what everyone's seeing. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way in Zoom to view participants' screens. And that's why last night when I did my screen share and people couldn't see it, I had no way of knowing that. So now I always look for the green bar. So it's just another tip there. You could log in with a secondary device and then you could actually see what your participants are seeing because we're seeing different things. It makes it a little bit tricky. So thanks for letting me know on that. So let me talk about the Zoom integration. Kurt's question about Canvas Zoom integration, and I'll take you to my Canvas shell. So if you're not using Zoom in Canvas, you don't even need to mess with this. The advantage of using the Zoom integration in Canvas is, and I talked with Treva about this, 3 advantages that we see. The students have access to the Zoom invites directly in Canvas. You can schedule the sessions directly in Canvas, and the videos are archived directly in Canvas. The disadvantage, I should say there are 2. One is I think the graphic interface is not that attractive or user-friendly, and there's a slight bit of redundancy. So let me take you to a Canvas shell and show you how this works. You will see actually on here, depending on the shell, let's see, it should have CCC Confer. If it's not showing up, actually, let me take you to a different shell. This is a live class. I want to take you to the non-live class right here. So you should see CCC Confer Now, they renamed it, right here on your tab, your course tab in Canvas. If you don't see that, as you know, click on Settings, and then what you'll want to do is click on Navigation, and then if it's not there, then you would just drag it, drag it up or down. If you want it to show, it should be showing up here. Once you do that, you hit Save, and then it'll appear in your menu. If you're wondering what the heck is all this, take my Canvas workshop coming up over the next few days. All I do is I click on Confer Now, And my warning on this is use Google Chrome. I tried this in Explorer. It's a disaster. And even Safari on a Mac, it's not so great. So here's what pops up. Again, from a pure graphic interface experience, I don't love this. I think it looks kind of junky, but whatever. I'm a picky guy when it comes to graphics and user interfaces. But in any case, you'll see a series of tabs, a calendar, appointment booking, event recordings, event attendance. The place you would begin is, I would hit schedule. I'm going to cross my fingers it works. Okay. So far it's working. I'm going to type in here, if Kurt's, leading a class, I could say Kurt's lecture for Tuesday. You could name it whatever you want. I could type in a description, a little window comes up. And then, very easy, I set the date of it, the calendar view comes up, I set the time of it, I set the duration. And then once I hit save, then it saves it. And the advantage of this is, and at any time, that functionality in Canvas, it's the magenta View as Student that you access from your Canvas site. The same thing is available here on CCC or what's it called now? Confer Zoom. They keep changing the name of it, so we're using the old name. So I hit View as Student, and then what's nice about this is then if I want to log into Kurt's lecture for Tuesday, all I have to do is... let's see here, click more details. It should have a link there. Yep, exactly. So then what the student will do, because it hasn't started yet, it's grayed out. They hit join. And then the nice thing is they don't even have to move to Zoom externally. So really to answer Kurt's earlier question, I would say is, where do you want the students to go? Do you want them to be able to join all of these events inside of Canvas, or do you want to tell them to go external? Now the truth is you could do the same function, everything I'm doing right here, just through your modules. So all you would have to do is go to modules, and whatever module we're on, we'll just add it as a test, create a new content page, and we call that test. I hit add item, and then I'll edit that, and all I need to do is say, please click this link. And then what do? I cut and paste that unique link that I set up through the Zoom program or the Zoom web version. I hit save. The students click that, it takes them to Zoom. So to really answer your question, I would say whatever you think is easier, whatever you think your students think will be easier. Now, if you wanted to, if you're going to run your class as a face-to-face version class, that will meet, not in person on campus, but will meet via Zoom every week, Tuesday from 10 to 11 a.m. Then what would be kind of cool is you could set up all those lectures. So if I'm Kurt teaching my music class, I could click and create 10 of these for a week or 20 of these for, twice a week, whatever I want to do. And then all the students have to do is find that on the calendar, click on that, and then it's very easy for them to navigate. Likewise, I click on event recordings, and none of these have been recorded because they didn't take place. But all I have to do then, if this really did happen, I would click on that, and there's an immediate archive available. And that's something that is a little bit easier. If you're going to ask students to try to access archival videos from Zoom, I really would argue with you that Zoom is not your place to go to for asynchronous video. Asynchronous video is best done in my video workshop. I'll talk about this coming up. Best when you use the content editor in Canvas, recording your own media, and also use what's called Canvas Studio, which is available on this tab here and also here. So really, to answer Kurt's question from earlier, I would say it just depends on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish in terms of your class. So any thoughts on that, instructors or folks who might be thinking about integrating this? Do you think you would use Confer Zoom, or do you think you would just give the students the link to the Zoom meeting that you've set up via the Zoom app itself? Any thoughts on that you would share?
Which would be an easier way, in your opinion?
I think it's a toss-up. Again, it depends on, we don't know where our students are coming at it from a technology standpoint. I would say it's a total tie. If you want to incorporate the event recording, if that's really important for you to have that right inside your Canvas shell, then I would definitely use Confer Zoom. If you just want to give students a link, again, you can do that through modules. It'll take them to Zoom anyway. And here's the deal. what's happening here is only recording and placing the Zoom recordings in the shell and scheduling it for you. It is not recording it for you. It always takes you to Zoom externally to do the actual video conferencing. So to me, it suggests a level of redundancy, and I think Trev and I we have a different opinion on this, which is fine. So I would say it's totally up to you. Yeah, go ahead. Whoever was talking.
Yeah. Scott?
Yeah, so on. Was it?
Yeah, I think that having it in Canvas is possibly more beneficial to the students because they've got to learn to navigate all over the place.
Yeah.
And to take your class, they have to go to modules.
Mm-hmm.
So if your Zoom meeting's in there, they're going to see it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think at this point, because of the chaos of the pandemic, everyone's going to be stressed. Everyone's going to be thinking about a lot of things beyond our classes. So I would agree with Shelley that maybe let's make it easier for our students. Now, again, a lot of this will depend on what you're doing in your class. So I can't say for you what's going to make the most sense. But I think as we work through some of this collaboratively, particularly in some of the workshops coming up they'll be doing, we might come to some solutions or some suggestions, but you have to be the decider in terms of what you want to do for your class. I would never tell you one way or another that one way is better or not. But kind of as we're wrapping up here in the last couple of minutes, what I would say is if you're interested in the non-synchronous video, so this is great if we're doing a real-time lecture, if we're working with our students through a series of problems. I gave the example in my earlier video workshop that if I'm teaching an audio production class and in real time I want to talk to students about creating tracks and setting up equalization and doing reverbs, there's going to be a real advantage of showing this in real time and thus using Zoom. But if I just want to take my students through the process of creating tracks in Logic and how I approach that and have my students watch that non-synchronous or asynchronous, then I could easily see that as a good option to not use Zoom. So Zoom is going to be your best bet for anything in real time that you want a group collaborative nature. There's someone who emailed me, they're not on right now. They're hoping to do like a group counseling class in a setting of Zoom, and the instructor said, do you think I could do it? I said, absolutely, because you have built-in privacy. If students want to ask you a private question using chat, and I have the chat window in the middle of the screen, you can't see it, but the whole point of the privacy setting is someone could email you through chat a question like, hey, for the next part of our counseling session, I'm going to talk about this sensitive topic. Is it okay? You could say, please excuse me, I'm going to read that as I'm doing now. Someone said I would use the Zoom link, not in Canvas. So yeah, it's kind of your opinion. But what's cool about the group chat is for privacy settings or privacy situations, you can respond to students in a way that you actually couldn't do in a real class. In a real face-to-face class, a student would have to say, can we talk outside the room? I'm going to talk about this sensitive situation related to a drug and alcohol addiction, and is it okay that I bring it up in this way? You can't do that in a traditional class. In Zoom, you can do that because you have the privacy settings that are built into all the functionality that we're operating with. So again, what makes sense for your class? Do you need synchronous video or not? So any of you out there right now, are you thinking for your class you're going to try something synchronous for your spring quarter class? Do you think it's going to work for you? Maybe you do want to share with the group how that might work for your particular material in terms of what you're teaching. Any ideas about that?
I'm teaching a class in how to make a movie, and I will take each step of every job possibility, all the options in a live classroom situation.
Yeah. Great. So it might replicate, like if I were teaching a live class, a sociology class, and I have web pages up, if I have videos I'm showing, I could do that in real time. Again, anything that you can access on your desktop from a web browser, you can share with your students in real time. They can do the same. So you could have some really interesting collaborative opportunities just using that screen share function. So yeah, what I might say is replicate some of the things you do in a traditional physical face-to-face classroom and see how it works. You'll make mistakes, our students will make mistakes. It's the whole point of trying this experiment. And guess what? Most colleges around the world are doing the same thing that we're doing right now. It's not like we're the only ones doing it. Thousands of universities and colleges are doing it as we speak and having these same challenges that we all have. So, yeah. Yeah, Kurt.
I have a thought on using video versus not video for participants. I find as a participant, it's so much easier for me to relate to the people that are on video. And from the standpoint of student-to-student interaction in a Zoom meeting, my guess is that it's going to be much more effective to have students on video.
I agree with you. Yep, a couple thumbs up there. So what I would say is maybe put in your syllabus a policy that says, I really want you to have video on. If there's an emergency or you start coughing or something, you're embarrassed, mute your video, your audio for that bit, and then get right back on. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, if my door's closed, but if my cat's jumped in here right now, I would be embarrassed, and I wouldn't want all of you to see my cats, running around or something like that. But I think as long as you set that policy up in your syllabus and explain the reason for that, I think students will respect that. And in all honesty, I really do believe in the era of lockdowns and quarantine, we're going to really appreciate this kind of interaction because we're not going to have a lot of it because everything is shutting down worldwide, really, in terms of social gatherings. So, but I love your perspective. I absolutely agree with it. And I'm not teaching I'm teaching a class this quarter. I'm not teaching in spring. I'll be doing more workshopping with all of you. But I would do exactly what you're saying. I would say, let's do real-time video. And right now, I'm not offended. Some people have their video muted, perfectly fine. But for a classroom setting, I think I would want that. I would define why it's important and just tell the students the rules that you've set up for them with the video. So really great point there. Anything else? I mean, we can stay 5 more minutes or so. If any of you have to go, you could certainly log off. But any other thoughts or questions or concerns about how you might want to use this?
Yeah.
Yes, Solange?
Yes. We were talking about earlier regarding events.
Yeah.
I wanted to find out what the difference is between events and the actual link for meetings. Like if you were having meetings for events.
That one, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer that. Let me see. Events versus, let's see, I think, well, there's, and you're talking about on this, the Confer Zoom right here, on this?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think what happens is you click on the event calendar, you schedule a meeting, like I did there, and then that, I think, then becomes all populated. Anything that is then an event, they're calling that events instead of meetings, which is a little different. So again, I'm saying there's not the best sort of cross-talk between the Confer Zoom part and the Zoom part. I think appointment booking is for office hours, and I haven't even tried this, so let's see, offer slots. Okay. Oh, okay, this looks kind of cool. So I believe this is for office hours. So offering slots, start time and end time. So I guess what I could do is establish a time zone and then set up slot duration. So for office hours, I will have maybe 13 minutes. Oh, that's actually pretty slick. Look at that. So it's updating as we go. So as the meeting duration or the office hour duration gets lower, more slots appear. So I think then, and you could do breaks between. So if you need a bathroom break or a coffee break, you could add some breaks and then it decreases the number. I guess I hit save. Oh, slot misalignment. Okay. Forgo extra time. And then what it looks like is, I think what will happen is, then during that time period, the students would then be able to, in student view, it's not giving me the student view anymore, which is kind of weird. It would under event recordings. I don't know why, but will it appear on the calendar? I've never messed with this. Let's see. So I'm assuming somewhere it's going to show those. It's going to show the actual appointments available. Okay, appointment blocks. Okay. So I'm guessing when that time starts, maybe that appears for the students. So it looks like appointment is what we would traditionally call an office hour for a student, whereas event is like a class meeting, what Zoom calls a meeting. And that's one of the issues I have here. They probably should call this a meeting because it's a meeting in Zoom, even though here it's an event. So a little bit of different language there. So that I think that's my best guess, is that appointment is what we would call an office hour. It looks like. So again, totally up to you if you want to use Confer Zoom or if you would rather use, as Kurt was getting at, the external link to Zoom itself. It's totally up to you. So anything else question-wise that's coming up? Otherwise, we could call it quits. And let me just show you, if you're interested tomorrow, let's see if I have this available. It looks like tomorrow I have, tomorrow, right, is, yes, the 18th. So tomorrow I have another Zoom workshop at 10 a.m. And then I'm doing another Canvas Basic Prep at 6 and 7. I may throw in, I'm doing a max of 4 a day, I may throw in one of the specialized, I think my next one will be how to do modules in Canvas. If that happens, it'll probably be closer to evening because the president has scheduled the all-campus meeting tomorrow from 3 to 4:30. So let's see how that goes. I will send out an all-campus email if that's the case. But yeah, here we are. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling more and more confident as we're having these workshops and conversations that definitely I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. There was one more question I saw here. Can you as host see that others are private messaging? And I think the answer to that is, I think it's yes. If you email, if you do private messages, I think maybe. But if you're concerned about that, you could maybe go in the settings page and maybe make sure that a lot of that isn't going on if you're like concerned about distractions of students private messaging one another during a class a workshop or something like that. Not entirely sure, so we can investigate that. So, but yeah, I don't know. Are you feeling good? Like, do you think we're gonna make this work? I'm feeling every day as we do these more and more confident that we're all going to make it happen. Every day I do one of these workshops using Zoom, I find a new quirk or a new issue. So you're going to be in the same situation working with Canvas or Zoom, depending on what you're working with. So we're going to get through it. We're going to crowdsource and collaborate, and definitely opportunities to share and make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes. So, okay, I think I'm going to sign off. I need a little maybe Netflix time myself to do something else. So I will call this to a close. I hope to see some of you tomorrow, either for our all-campus meeting or a few more workshops coming up. Reach out if you have concerns or comments or questions, and I will see you all virtually in the near future. So thank you all. It's been wonderful, and look forward to all our collective efforts as a college. And that will do it. So goodbye, everyone.